Hello everybody and welcome back to another Barrett video today with myself, Ollie. Now I don't know if you recognize this place, but it's a very special location to me because this is where I've recorded my first ever walk and talk video back in November 2019, and that is after I'd been in China for about 6 months. And now I've been in China for 2 years. I've traveled extensively throughout China over the past sort of 18 months, which I feel very fortunate to have done. So I feel like I'm much well versed and well experienced to talk about this topic. As you can tell by the title, the topic is about how safe is China really? Now this is something that I really feel, if you come to China just to travel or you come to live here, you will notice very quickly that the society and how life runs here is very harmonious, and it does allow you to feel very safe. Now I'm going to dig into that a little deeper during the course of this video, so stick around and you can hear my thoughts on it anyway. Now China, as you will know, it gets bashed a lot in the media. People who have never been here, they do misunderstand it greatly, and I think it's really unfortunate because there's a lot of fantastic aspects to China that I feel like people are missing out on because they don't have an open mind about the country and they're not willing to come and experience it for themselves. And this, about safety, is one of those things where you just expressing it through a camera is not enough, you know. I feel like it's something that you have to experience for yourself for you to really truly have a perspective change, you know. And that's definitely what happened to me, because growing up in the UK, you know, I grew up in a village which was pretty safe, you know. It's a kind of countryside, the Cotswolds area. I didn't grow up in a city, and there's a fair amount of crime in UK cities, and that's just the same as many countries across the world, you know. There's a lot of crime, and if you're going out at night, you want to be kind of wary, especially if you're on your own, and even more so if you're a female on your own. It's not really advised to go out at night by yourself. Now, one experience I had when I first came here, it must have been the first week, I would go out of the apartment and I would just walk around for hours in the evening because I was fascinated by what I was seeing, right? And there was one time I was out by myself, and it must have been, I think it was about midnight. And just in front of me, I saw, she must have been no older than 16, 17-year-old girl just walking alone on her phone. And she was strolling like not a care in the world, you know? And I was looking at her and I was like, man, I've never seen that back home. Like, I've never been in a city and I would never see such a young girl walking around by herself, because that's just not something you want to be doing. And you would feel very unsafe doing that in a Western city. But here, it's not something they have to be concerned about. Now, I see that as one kind of freedom that the Chinese people have that we don't particularly have in the UK or many other countries around the world. And that's really what kind of opened my eyes to how safe this country is. Now let me just precursor this with the fact that I do live in Shenzhen, which is a tier 1 city. So obviously they've got to be very strict with the security here. It's sort of in the spotlight, as you wish. And I noticed on the last video that some people were talking about, you know, what if you go into, you know, the 3rd, 4th, 5th tier cities, what's it like there? Now I can only talk from my own experiences and people I've talked to, but I get the feeling that it's actually not all that different in these other cities. Now there might be a little bit more petty crime, of course, that happens everywhere. And I've also spoke to people who live in these cities, foreigners who live in these cities, who say it's the same thing. They feel very, very safe. Because also it's not just the security cameras and the punishments for committing crimes. It's the harmonious Chinese mindset and society. It's like people don't like to trouble themselves. Don't get involved in other people's business. There's a Chinese phrase for it. Maybe you can help me out in the comments section. But people just kind of leave each other alone, and that can have its pros and cons in certain situations. There's obviously nuance to that. But in terms of your personal safety, it's a great thing. About 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you know, Lee's been coming here for 12 years. He said when he first arrived, the security wasn't so intense. So there was a lot more petty crime. He didn't say that he saw anything terribly bad, but you know, there were pickpockets and there were sort of small things like that happening quite often. But over the last sort of 10 or 12 years, that has been cleared up totally in the cities. I've never come across in my 2 years of being here anything like that. You know, in fact, there's been a couple of really eye-opening situations where I've actually lost my phone like 3 or 4 times in China, and every single time I've managed to get it back because I've gone to, you know, shops in the area and they've had it handed in, or I've gone to the security in the area and they've helped me look at the camera footage to see if anybody's taken it. And there was one time where I was at a football tournament with a friend, or a few friends, and he dropped his phone and he couldn't find it. And the security really helped him to find his phone, and they found that somebody else actually picked it up. And the police didn't get involved or anything. The security just sort of confronted this guy and he gave it back. Here, you can quite easily get it back. And I think there are many reasons for that. One being that the consequences for stealing, the consequences for committing crimes are pretty severe, which I don't see as a particularly bad thing, because that stops people doing it. You know, there was one time we did something, you could say it was kind of silly, but we really wanted to get a time-lapse shot in Chongqing on the bridge, right? But we didn't want to sit there for 2 hours whilst we waited for this time-lapse. So we put it on the outside of the bridge and we left it there, went for dinner, and we literally just left it there. This is like, what, a 2,000 RMB, $300 camera, and we just felt okay with leaving it there. Obviously, we were a little bit anxious about it, but we knew that even if anybody did see it, they probably wouldn't take it, because the mindset is like, oh, if I take that, what's gonna happen to me? And I've left my bike on the road, my e-bike with its keys in many times, and you know, it's never been taken. You know, there will be one time where it probably will be taken, and I've had a friend who has had his e-bike stolen by doing the same thing. So it's not to say that it never happens, but comparatively to many other countries, it doesn't happen very often. Now, back to what I was saying at the start, I'm going to be looking at the floor because I'm just crossing some sort of rocks, as you'll be able to see behind me. But as I mentioned before, this is something that you probably won't truly understand by me just talking to you about it. It's something that you have to have your own experience with it to really have your perspective changed. And I truly believe that, because when you've lived in the same society for a long time, it's hard to put yourself in other people's shoes. It's hard to truly understand until you've had the experiences yourself. Now, if you ever see about there being a lot of security cameras on Western news to say that, you know, the Chinese government are trying to track all its people, it's just nonsense. It's really just nonsense, because if you think about it, what a waste of government resources it would be to try and track 1.4 billion people, their every move. Try and actually think about these things critically and think, why would they ever actually want to do that? No, the reason why they're there is so they can catch bad people committing crimes. And if you're somebody who thinks that's a bad thing, then I just wonder what you would want to get up to, you know? Because you should only really be concerned about that if you're somebody who's doing illegal things. Now that's just kind of common sense to me. We've spoken to hundreds, thousands of Chinese people over the time that we've been here now, and they've shared their experiences and thoughts about these topics with us. And the consensus is just that more cameras, facial recognition, these kinds of things just ensure their safety. And they really don't understand this negativeness towards it. And that's not even to mention, right, how, for example, London, the capital city in the UK, has one of the highest densely populated areas for security cameras in the world. But nobody really speaks about that. And also, you know how the Capitol in Washington, D.C. got raided by the protesters recently. Facial recognition was used to target the protesters and target the people who went into the building. Now, is that a bad thing? You could argue that it is, but I'm going to say I don't particularly think that's a bad thing, because they were doing something that is really pretty terrible, and the police were able to catch them by using facial recognition. Now, in conclusion, I think what I'm trying to say is, in China, I feel extremely safe, and I feel very fortunate to feel extremely safe, because it really is a freedom that if I had ever lived in a city in the UK or a city in many other countries, I don't feel like I would have that same freedom. And it's something that is fantastic. You know, soon I'm planning on doing a very special video, and I'm actually just going to drop it right here. When we hit 100 patrons on Patreon, link down below if you want to come become a member of the team and get exclusive content. When we get 100 patrons, I'm going to do a marathon. I'm going to walk from the center, the downtown of Shenzhen, and I'm going to walk all the way back. It's about 24 miles, 40 kilometers back to my apartment. And just to sort of document the journey, I think it would just be something fun to do, but also just to show you how safe it really is. Now, I wouldn't even dream of doing that back home, you know, and I don't think I mentioned I'm going to do that overnight. So I'm going to start at like midnight, and maybe I'll get back at like 7 in the morning or something like that. Document it hour by hour, and I'm not concerned about it one little bit. Now, you might be able to say that I'm being naive or whatever, but yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Anyway, I'm going to wrap that video up here. Hopefully you did enjoy this old school, back to our roots walk and talk in the location of the first ever walk and talk on the channel. A lot has changed since then, man, and I'm very grateful for it. We're both very grateful for it, so thank you guys so much. But yeah, like, subscribe, comment down below, all that good stuff. I'd like to hear about where you live and what the safety is like in the cities of your country, and we will see you in the next one. For now, everybody, take care.